Hi Sakshi, how are you doing?
Hi, Himanshu. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're
Uh,
most welcome.
let's start with Sakshi. Who are you? Who are you as a person? Where you born and how your childhood has been like? Tell me something about yourself.
Wow. So, I think let's start with childhood. It's going to take some time for me to actually remember things, but I guess as a kid, I was very, very shy. I was not as talkative as I am today. I was nowhere close to standing on the stage and doing things. So yeah, I remember that part that I was very, very scared to be on stage. Like while I'm speaking, I have the memory of a few times where I went and my heart was in my mouth and my friends were cheering up for me. So in short, I was not somebody who enjoyed, getting up on stage and all those things. But I was a very not quiet, somewhere in the middle, but I was a very, this thing when I was at home, I was very all cool and chilled out. Uh, but yes, I love art. I loved art as a child. I still do it, but I do it quite less, I would say. Um, but as a kid, I loved to paint. I loved to play outside. I think I had a very nice and a very basic childhood. I won't say it was way too fancy. Like I don't belong to a family where we have got, too much where I didn't
Mhm.
appreciate, but we had enough where as a family we celebrated occasions. Not too many, but I remember still kind of doing that. Um, but yeah, very basic and very, uh, I would say very Indianish, where you're playing outside. You've got those old school games that you're playing with your friends,
Right.
and I've not been a very nowhere close to that video game or all those kind of things. So I was very hands on. I'll create something, I'll make something,
Mhm.
and then I love to again attending art classes and having conversation with people. Yes, somewhere was my strength. So it's yeah, getting into limelight and getting on stage was not my thing, but
Right.
speaking to people has been somewhere a part of me very strongly since childhood. And people used to come to me, talk about their things. So somewhere I think now while I'm speaking, I've actually not sat on this and thought in a way that I'm thinking right now, that people used to come and speak, and including my cousins and friends. But I think I would like to call my childhood as basic and very nice, like with cousins and friends, and not too jazzy, not too fancy. Thank goodness we didn't have the social media thing at that time. So we were literally enjoying the moment and not
Right.
recording the moment. So basic and real nice, I would say.
That's amazing. So do you still use any form of that art that you used to do in your childhood?
I do. But like I said, I just gifted myself something for my birthday in advance, just so that I make painting a bit easier for me, since with work and other responsibilities, it does happen that you kind of push it off.
Right.
But having said that, it's I'm working on making it a part of my life, and I'm being very conscious of saying that I'm working on making it,
Mhm.
because people think that things are going to fall off on their lap and they'll start doing. So
Right.
you literally have to be very conscious about planting what you like in your schedule and everything else, so that you can remind yourself that this is also what you like. But sometimes you just forget it because it requires a lot of effort.
Right.
So I do it. I do doodling. I do paint. But now sometimes it's a lot of effort to take out the colors. Then your hands will be all over, the colors are all over the place. And now I have a puppy at home, so I have to be all the more careful. So I think life happens, but yeah, I believe somewhere I'm going back to that part, because
Mhm.
that makes me more creative. The moment I paint, I get the sort of ideas that I don't get otherwise.
Mhm.
So I think it brings that creative and that very natural part of me, which I believe sometimes I just forget that
Mm.
there's something out there. Just use it. Just leverage that
Yeah.
opportunity. So I'm trying to include more of that in my weekends, where I literally schedule it in my calendar so that I know I'm more prepped up. Because as much as it might sound very, logical and too much of effort, but trust me, when you get to a level where life gets busy,
Right.
you literally have to make efforts even for the things that you love to do.
Right. No, absolutely, Sakshi. I think it's very and super important to schedule, time for things that you probably would always wanted to do it, but due to your busy schedule, you cannot make time for it anymore. So now you have to put it in calendar. Speaking of calendars and scheduling, Sakshi, let's just talk about a couple of things, and had a lot of questions to ask you. But one of the things that I wanted to ask from you is that how does one manage their own time?
Wow, that's a big one. So I would say somewhere, see, time management is a lot to do with how you manage. I would say first, how you manage your priorities. How do you manage your energy? How do you manage your emotions? In simple language, how do you even manage your overthinking? Like a lot of people, it's not about people don't have time. Like when I work with clients, it comes out very easily that it's not about the time. It's about so much of emotion, so many things that they're carrying that they don't know how to unload. That's where the main challenge lies. So I know, of course, there's a part of it. How do you utilize your time better? You can use, urgent and important, just to see that, what is really, really important for me to work on, and what is going to give me that 80%. Like if you use the Pareto principle 80-20, I'm a big fan of it. Anytime I am in confusion, I ask myself, what do you think is going to give you that 80%?
Tell us for the listeners what Pareto principle is, if you can explain.
So it's basically it's about that there are 20% of the task in the activities that will give you 80% of the result. It's in the context that I'm talking right now, the time management. So in any work, any job that I have been into, even in currently in my work, there's a lot that we do. But if you have been reflective enough to see, there is always that 20% that can give you a lot more result, but that 20% might be harder, it might require more effort, and which is why you drop back to other things. Ki chalo, let's do that, we feel good, kar lete hain, but the impact of it is not as big or as huge as that 20%.
Right.
So I think it's very important to identify that 20% of what will take you genuinely closer to where do you want to go.
Right.
And explore that, how that 20% is actually giving you more results and more of what your business wants. If you're a business person, if you are working full time, then also it's very important to know that what is my 20%, where do I put my efforts. Right. Because I know it might be difficult, but if I do that, that can actually give me 80% of the result. So it's something close to what I said in one of the videos lately as well, that there are some things that you will feel nice about after you do them, and there are some things that you feel nice about before you do them. So when we watch Netflix, there's a lot of feeling nice when you're about to watch it, but you know what happens after that.
Right.
So to do harder things, it'll always be the feeling that you're looking for is going to come after you do it.
Right.
So that patience has to be built, and that's also a skill. And nobody talks about that in time management. That how do I even get myself to start something, go through those uncomfortable feelings where I'm not able to solve something. I'm feeling like this is, exhausting, and I'm feeling stressed out. I'm feeling anxious. How do I even solve those things and now get to a point where I finish the part one of my work as well? Right. So it's a lot about managing those emotions and energy at that moment when you sit about it, and and then kind of move forward from there. So it's a lot about prioritizing and then managing yourself to understand and accept your priorities and get through them. That's a lot of emotional intelligence right there, by the way.
Yeah. But speaking of emotional intelligence, actually, I think time management is more of energy management. I think that's where I read or heard somewhere. that more than it's actually managing your time, it's you're managing your energy. If you would be able to crack the energy bit of your time management, you would be naturally able to crack the time management piece as well.
Yeah. So your energy, your attention. I mean, just look at simple example. You're just getting to work on something that's really difficult for you. Okay. Is it about the time? I mean, it could be. You might be short on time. I understand. But even in that short time, what you're managing actually is your attention and your emotions of okay, I've got 1 hour to finish. How do I get this done? Because the feelings take over. We know that. And if you're feeling anxious about something, there's probability, if you don't know how to calm yourself down, there's a probability that you won't be finishing that task, or probably not even starting, and kind of start distracting yourself, unless you've got somebody sitting on your head and you know you got to submit something.
Right.
We all know how that works. Of if you have more time, you're going to take more time. If you have less time, that's how we work. Right. So understanding that at that moment, it's only how you manage how your body is feeling, manage your self-talk. How do you, it's like convincing a child to study when they know they should be studying, but they don't want to study. It's literally that process that you need to learn to manage and get through it. And that's how you'll be able to finish even one small task. And we know how distracted we are these days. So it's a lot about it, attention and energy management.
Yeah, I agree. How do you manage your own time, Sakshi? Do you use any time management techniques? Do you use calendars? Is there anything that you use to manage your time and energy well?
So I am a calendar person. I'm a walking, talking calendar. I don't know how, like for a lot of people, I'm like, what? You put this also in your calendar? Because I know I don't want to remember. I don't want to push my brain to an extent. It's already pushed so much. Okay. I don't want to push it. So I'm a calendar person to that extent. And I'll give you an example. Is me and my friend was just like, he and I was speaking yesterday about catching up on Saturday. The moment he said Saturday, I asked him what time and I put it in my calendar.
Right.
Of course, because I work on clarity. I work on something whereby I don't want to say, hey, I forgot. If it's important for me, I'm going to take measures to get it done, right? So I think I'm a very, very calendar person. Everything will be in my calendar. Plus, something that I had to go to the extent because my work involves a lot of social media. And yes, I do get distracted. So there's nothing different that happens when people say, oh, you're a coach, you would be knowing everything. We live in the same world, okay? So there's a lot more that we need to do, especially if you're so much on social media. Yeah. So I use my phone for even just, putting a small, like 25-minute slot for myself. Because it's very natural for me as a person, because I'm so much on social media, for my hands to reach out unconsciously, unknowingly on my phone. And after that, I'll realize, oh my God, how did that happen? Like, I was just working in how did that happen? So I put like 25 minutes slot and I'll work. And the moment I see the numbers, I know, okay, even if I will go and reach out, not that mistakes won't happen even then, but you reach out, at least you see the numbers and you're like, okay, get back. So it becomes an anchor for me to bring me back. Also, I started to see and understand where do I have my most energy and what should I do, or which project would need that energy. So if I have like mails to exchange, I would do it probably in the afternoon after food as well. I know these are not very important and they will not consume a lot of energy.
Right.
But if I have, like, we're doing this podcast first thing in the morning because we know what kind of energy it needs.
Right.
So similarly, the project. So it's basically then you also, the technique is like you understand and you reflect on what kind of energy a project or a task needs, and then you place in a day according.
Yeah.
And I would say it's rest, flexibility is something that is also a skill.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times things are not going to go as per what you've planned. A lot of times, trust me, like if you have, and I think people would understand, if you have kids, if you're living in India, one day you're all planned and morning your maid says she's not coming.
Right.
Plan changes, flexibility is your skill at that time. Because the more you're going to, again, the emotional management is a very strong technique. How do you convince yourself to get out of that and then, get going. Like, ho gaya. Now that's the situation. How do I move forward from there? Because I can't spend the whole day now thinking about, oh, I planned this, it didn't work out.
Right.
So handling those impulses, that feeling that makes you feel like you have no control, and then coming to a point that, no, I still have control on things that I can do. That self-talk, that convincing for me is also a very big skill that I've learned over time, that how do you become flexible enough to get on with the day anyway?
Right.
Yeah.
So how can one develop that skill? And let's say, for example, let's take an example. Let's say today I want to develop that skill of being self-aware. Now there's one way of saying that I can just reflect, use reflection exercises, write down something every morning, journal, read books, watch a couple of podcasts, or hear a couple of podcasts, or learn something new to discover myself. Is there any other thing that you can do to know much more about yourself, so that can lead to a better self-awareness?
So is your context in terms of time management, that how did I reach to all these techniques? Is that where you're going?
Yes.
It is a lot about observation. So I would say the starting note I always say, if you're ending your day without reflection, without looking at what did you do, why did you do, what did you wanted to do in the first place, not because you want to, like a lot of people see this as need hi kya hai.
Yeah.
Isn't this hustling like you're looking at your day? Isn't it like productivity? So they connect a lot of things to just the sheer fact that looking at your day is just being honest to yourself. So I keep it very simple for myself. So to answer your question, the reason I was able to decide for so many things for myself was because at the end of the day, I will stop and see what happened and be absolutely honest with myself. No story creation. We know we are nice story creators. Yeah, we can create stories and excuses like nobody else.
Right.
Nobody else. You give us 5 days, you give us 10 days, 1 year, the story is just going to get better, more vivid, more real. And we will be like, of course, that was so difficult. That's why we couldn't do it.
Right.
Daily reflection will push you to be honest with yourself. This is why I push people to do reflection. All my clients do reflection. This is why I have reflection ritual kit out for people. Because if you're not looking at your day, you're missing the golden nuggets that belong to you. I can tell you all that I do, but that might not fit to where you are and what is the context of your life at this point.
Right.
You might be a mother who does not have so much of time like I do. So my techniques might give you a starting point.
Right.
But without reflection, without your own thinking, without your own experimenting, you will not be able to create something that's suitable to your phase of life, which will change time to time.
So what is that's what I was trying to understand. What is a starting point for somebody who is just starting out with any reflection exercise, who's just wanting to know, and let's say it's a teenager, is a boy who wants to understand something about their life, and he's probably into a college right now. And he wants to know what he's really good at. Now, let's say if he's doing a couple of things, but he's still not being able to understand what he is really good at. What is top 2 or top 3 questions that he should be asking himself as a starting point? What is that 1 or 2 questions? What are those top 1 or 2 questions that they should be asking?
So I think, this one should be able to help. And this is what I've also done in my journey to understand. Sometimes you know what you're good at because you can see, like, I enjoy and I'm able to get some sort of result. You might not be, like you mentioned about somebody who's very young. Okay. Right. So you might not have created a lot of results. So you don't know. You've kind of spread yourself into a lot of activities.
Right.
Okay. I think one of the things is also that you can ask yourself that what do people come to me for? Like that has actually helped me to figure out where do I fit in terms of my strengths.
Yeah.
So I think that could be one where you could start exploring. And other is obviously to I think that sheer observation that what do I do that I enjoy? And I feel like it has given me a sense of fulfillment, sense of happiness, a sense of, and it's a very different feeling that you can't even put in words. It's like, you know, it belongs to you, but that will only come when you will pause and let yourself feel a little bit more, right? अगर आप एक काम से दूसरे काम में jump कर रहे हो and पूरा दिन आप भाग रहे हो, you did not even have time to see what are you genuinely enjoying in the first place.
Right. Taking a pause is very important, right?
Absolutely. And which is why I connect pause to reflection, because you're pausing to feel more and then to think better. Because aap rukoge, then only you will get into a space where you'll be like, अच्छा अब क्या करना है? तो naturally जब वो stage आएगा ना, अब क्या करूँ? Bore हो रहा हूँ या bore हो रही हूँ. Then your thoughts will be like, then you can direct your thoughts to something more specific, or you can do, you can, then you can move them towards a specific direction and think a little bit. You can think better and more calmly, I would say. And that is what is required to find out your own strengths, because it does require you to pause and sit with yourself and ask that, what is it that I enjoy? What do people come to me for? What is it that people have been complimenting me on? And sometimes it's a huge hint. Like just these two questions could be a huge hint that people come to you because whenever they feel down, they want somebody to motivate. So, one of your strength is this, that you can influence people, you can convince people, you can give them a safe space to speak. So I think these are the few things that you can use to start exploring.
Interesting.
And then also, Himanshu, I'll just add one more thing to it, because finding strength, sometimes it's also about taking the risk of putting your finger on one thing. A lot of us are juggling a lot of things because somewhere we are so used to variety in our life that we've somehow convinced ourselves that no, we can't put our finger on one thing. And if you see, like while I'm speaking, I'm literally speaking my raw thoughts. It's also happening in relationships. We're just so not sure of ourselves that we feel we don't want to get married. We don't want to get into like a specific area. We just want to explore everything, which is fine, which is great. You should do it. And without exploration, you won't need it, which is why even to a young person, I always say, go and explore, because unless you experience, you won't really know what you want. And that's true. Exploration have to be there, but some point you also need to understand, is it the fear that's guiding me and not making me kind of fix myself to a place? I'm just adding that thought in case somebody is struggling to put themselves or put a finger on one, whether area of study, whether it's your career choice. Sometimes that risk taking and knowing that, yes, if things don't work out, you can still change, you can still take a detour. Putting a finger on something specific is very important for us to learn and explore, the depth of something better.
Right. I'll actually add a layer to it, that's actually coming from a point of awareness versus coming from a point of ignorance is something that you should be able to differentiate at. So you really need to question yourself. Is the decision that you're making at a moment, whatever decision that you're pointing and pinning it down, is it coming from the point of awareness or is it coming from the point of ignorance?
Yeah.
Right? And I think
well said.
Having a pause and really asking why you're doing what you're doing is extremely important in that case.
Yeah.
Not in just that case, I think in every aspect of life. Right?
Yeah, anything. And that's why we also have an issue of comparing apple to oranges. Like you said, somebody comparing their journey to somebody of that caliber.
Right.
You need to have some common factors, right?
Yeah.
You can't be. So I saw this video. I think he's Digital Pratik. That's his name.
Mm-hmm.
One of the professionals that I follow on Instagram.
Yeah.
And there was a video where crux was that somebody could be doing something at 26. Somebody could be doing the same thing at 35, at 45. It's about understanding and respecting your own journey, which I know in theory looks okay to everybody. But again, it's a lot of work that goes into understand that, oh my God, you know what? Somebody at 22 is able to do so much. And here I'm sitting at like 40 and trying to figure out my life. The whole thing is, again, we are so unique, and unless we build a foundation of understanding that our uniqueness is what gives us purpose.
Yeah.
and the nuggets, the gold is there in our own journey. Nobody has the knowledge, nobody has the experience that you have as Himanshu, nobody has what I have as Sakshi. Having that confidence comes with time. And again, I think it comes with starting with a belief and a statement that I'm unique, my journey is unique, my timing is unique. I'm going to get through my things in my own way. I think starting to, use those self-coaching tools where you know how to at least get yourself out of that comparison of apple and oranges is very important, because a lot of people are just killing themselves for nothing when their journeys have been so different from the people they're comparing it with. So
I was actually listening to one of Variku's podcasts the other day, and he was speaking about something on we don't even start because we already have made ourselves such a big deal in our own minds that what if we're going to do fail? And he was like, bro, you didn't even start. How can you actually fail? So in order to fail, you have to start, right?
Absolutely. And which is why a lot of times we talk a lot about breaking rules of society, of other people. Trust me, a lot of us are just not being able to break the rules that we have made for ourselves, the rules which are not even our own for that matter. But it's in our mind. So we're thinking about, no, we've got to be rebel and do what we want to do, break rules in society. I always say, I'm going to challenge yourself to break your own rules. You've got something to do, I challenge you to start. Because there's some rules, there's some assumption, there's some belief you've made in your mind, and which is why you're not able to start, right? So how about starting breaking your own rules and seeing how that works for you? And he's absolutely right. I mean, we make such a big deal of ourselves in our mind that you feel like you are the center of everybody's attention. Whereas we all know everybody's so focused on themselves. Nobody's actually got time to worry about where are you standing in life. Unless you're a celebrity and you're so famous where people are just kind of waiting for your next action, which is also for a day max.
Yeah. And I know there's a whole school of thought out there who talks about that, social media has aggravated this problem within us, especially in Gen Z and millennials. I don't truly believe that. I think everyone is making a choice at some point of time in their life. And the choice is either to follow the herd or to make your own path. While social media have those kind of effects on your mind, because it's addictive, you're following random people. And I don't know, I've read somewhere on the internet, it's called now social media has become an interest-based media instead of social networking. So everything that you follow on social media has ripple effects. So the algorithm is going to show you more of what you're already liking and engaging with.
For sure.
Right. So if I'm engaging with a lot of content that is motivational and inspirational, so algorithm is going to show me a lot of content that is inspirational and motivational. If I'm going to keep watching a dog and cat videos all day, algorithm is going to make sure that I watch at least 50 to 60 videos or reels of dogs and cats on my Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can totally relate. I just bought a candle a week ago, and I've been getting candle ads for since that day. All I can see on my Instagram is candle ads. So again, see, that's why if you have that knowledge, if you have that observation, and if you understand, which is why I come back to emotional intelligence as a base of everything, because unless you understand what is the psychology behind the world right now, you're going to fall prey of literally everything. Everything, because that's why setting your environment is so necessary. Now, that also comes from awareness, from making mistakes, from pausing and reflecting. I tell a lot of clients to reflect on how they spend money, if that's one of the concerns we're talking about. Because you got to understand that everybody's out there for your attention and for their good. Let's be honest. We are recording this. We want people to listen to us. Right? So that pause, that reflection is very important for you to see, where am I heading in my life? Am I spending the money which I have? Am I spending it in the direction that I really want to? What is the reason behind it? I mean, I'm just giving money as one of the examples here. But again, which is why pausing and reflecting is answer to most of my things. That understand how the system of social media, since you bought that point of how the whole stat factor and the whole algorithm factor works. So unless you stop by and literally see that, oh my god,
Yeah.
I do all my shopping at the end of the day when I'm tired, that's a clue for you to understand yourself. I mean, a lot of people, I've been there. I know a lot of my friends who shop at late night because you're tired, you want to feel good,
Right.
you've had a bad day, and now you want to make up and sleep well, so you go and shop.
Yeah.
Now if you don't stop and reflect your day, then you're not going to catch hold of yourself doing these small things and then getting in the direction where it's going to take you in trouble. So again, pausing and looking back is very important.
Yeah, I think that the way to live a life that much mindfully and consciously, then it becomes very, very important and crucial. Especially, when you're so occupied during the day, and then you would want to make a conscious choices about yourself. Then you finally realize that you don't have an energy left within you to make any conscious choices anymore. And then I think reflection helps, right? You can then self-analyze yourself. What part of the day is where I spend my most energy on? So did I spend my most energy on having conversations that didn't have any ROI? ROI not in terms of obviously money, but ROI in terms of energy, getting an energy.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
that conversation with that person was an energy sucker or the energy giver? Or whether that meeting could have been email, right?
Oh, a lot of times.
Right. We all have been there, right? So let's just change gears a bit, Sakshi, and let's talk about productivity a bit. I want to understand how can one really keep themselves productive, and this is especially for the working professionals and even entrepreneurs, where there's so much talks about hustle culture and burnout.
Mm-hmm.
How one can really help them stay productive when there's so much out there catching hold of your attention all the time?
First and the foremost would be to change your relationship with the word productivity.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
People are starting to hate the word productivity. If so, I don't have a research to back up, I have observation to back up. Okay, when I speak to people, or when you see a lot of things on social media, it's like as if productivity has become like a swear word. Like, again, you're talking about productivity? I mean, why are you talking about productivity? Are we just supposed to work every day? Well, no. And the factor that unless you build a better relationship with productivity, you're running away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you accept or not, productivity is just about, I would say, as simple as you're doing what you're supposed to do. Yeah. Let's just keep it simple. Let's remove everything else that you've learned and just put it, you're doing what you're supposed to do. There could be a number of factors. If you don't like what you do, that's a different thing to explore. There's no problem with the word productivity here. It's just that you don't like what you're doing. So let's not blame the wrong word here. There could be a number of reasons, again, in your work. It could be challenges in your personal life. So many things could be going on. One way that I always say when I work with clients is, unless you change your mindset about productivity, good luck for having a relationship with it when you need it the most. Mm-hmm. Let's say you broke your relationship with it while you were doing something that you didn't enjoy. So you didn't reflect enough to either let go of that work or whatever. But when you need that habit in the space that when you're doing something that you love, now you're out of practice. You need that word to come back in your life, but because you've hated it so much, you're taking it much longer time to actually bring it back to your life. So first and the foremost is, how do you look at productivity? It's again, it's basic. What is the meaning that you've attached to the word?
Right.
And a lot of people, trust me, are not against productivity.
Yeah.
A lot of social media posts have made them against productivity, and I've had enough discussions with my clients to back that. And again, as I said, there's no research, there's observation, and there's work with the clients that I've done. that post, that social media, that context is different. When I also tell about not everything is about productivity, I'm coming from a different space altogether.
Mhm.
You need to understand that maybe the challenge in your life is genuinely that you don't know how to be productive and you need
Right.
productivity at this point. But if you have gone back to the post that you have read and you felt like, no, productivity is like hustling, I don't want to hustle in my life, you are connecting the wrong dots, my friend. You're going from productivity, okay, what does that mean for you? Hustling. So look at the connection of words in your life.
Right.
And then good luck. Of course, you're not going to come back. Your connection has to get changed, right? So productivity for me is being honest with myself. Khalas. For somebody else, productivity is hustling. Who do you think will be more productive? Person who's looking at productivity as just what it's supposed to give you, right?
Yeah.
If I'm going to kill myself and if I'm going to attach it to something that is making me feel aversive, of course, I'm not going to do anything towards it.
Yeah.
And productivity is not just for working professionals. I always say that's why I do brain dumping and I do basic things. I get my clients and myself good at basic. First is the relationship, then there are a few techniques, and then all you do is you manage your energy and then you kind of reflect on your day. It's very basic. We just have
Right.
learned to complicate things.
I think it's more of cutting through the noise, and
Yes.
know you should have enough awareness about what is noise and what is not noise, right?
Yes, that's a good crux. Yeah.
So a noise can be that you must follow these listicle format 10 rules in order to stay productive throughout the day. A not noise framework could be you figure out it for yourself. These are the 10 tools available for you any which way. Now you have to figure it out for yourself. So out of these 10 tools, figure out whether these 4 tools would work for you or whether that the other 6 tools would work for you. And these tools doesn't have to be a digital tool. These tools can be as simple as sleep, meditating, yoga, having a calendar for for a yoga session or a meditation session or a good sleep session. I'm talking about an afternoon nap, not about the sleep that you get.
I'm a big fan of that. Yeah. It's high time that we understand we were not supposed to be working for these long hours because our brain is not in the state that it takes so much of continuity of work. We're actually not working. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I've been in my full-time job. Yeah, I'm still working full-time. It's just that it's my own thing. You are in full-time job. We all know we can't function and we can't work for the entire day. It's a lie. It's a myth.
Yeah.
Your brain does not even have the energy to work the entire day. And imagine people are not even eating in between. They're not even resting. Again, that mentality of hustling and working and not pausing to see how my body is feeling. Because imagine if you have a stomach ache, do you think you'll be able to focus there? You're not focusing. Your body is already distracting you.
Right.
So getting back to basics again, it's we can't function the entire, like every minute. That's not happening. That was never happening any which way.
One of the things that I like about you, Sakshi, I think you really bring down a complex subjects and topics to getting back them to the basic all the time. So you're not about, here are the 10 techniques that you should follow, here the listicle format that you should be following and all that, the other so-called self-help gurus out there. But I think I genuinely appreciate and like the approach that you use in your life for coaching people and the work that you've been doing. And I've been following your social media posts as well for quite a while. They're mostly about coming from the point of awareness instead of just being prescriptive out there and telling people, what to do and what not to do, right?
And even if I would love to give you, I always write a disclaimer, please reflect and see what's your context. Nothing would fit it's not a Cinderella shoe that's going to fit you exactly. It's not like that. It was never like that. But also understand that personal development field is not going anywhere because everyone's evolving. Everyone's going to give what worked for them. You will look at, okay, this might work for me, but unless you stop and see what's working for you, you're going to look at another 50 videos, what's working for other people, but not sticking to what's working for you. that's where coaching plays a huge role, because with variety comes a lot of distraction. ये भी कर लेते हैं, ये भी try करते हैं, ये भी करते हैं. But again, that putting your finger on one thing, and I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to try and explore and reflect on how it's working for me. I think that has greatly worked for me and the clients I work with, because it's very important for us to see what's working for us and keep adding more of it, and letting go of if something is working. Example, so I can think of getting up in the morning. Okay, I'm a huge fan. It was not like I was always a huge fan of getting up. Now the lifestyle and everything else that I want to build is like, I want to wake up in the morning. A lot of people, because of their personal circumstances, family, kids, situation, they're not able to get up in the morning. Now, if you keep hearing morning, I still remember having a client, very experienced. She had a kid, 6-7 months old, and she was struggling with the acceptance that now my life has changed.
Yeah.
I might not be able to fit in the morning routine. I'll have to, again, that flexibility, acceptance that my life has changed. I got to change something to get the result that I'm looking at. Because even though you loved mornings, life has changed. The phase of life has changed. Now
Right.
you got to be flexible and move towards, okay, if I want to move towards what I want, let me explore what are the other options, because we always have them. So that's the point of view I'm coming from. You can borrow, you can take techniques, but unless you start using your brain and look at your own context, I think I won't be surprised that's why a lot of us are miserable, because we're like, why can't we do that?
Yeah.
You of course, I mean, there are a lot of things that I also feel like, oh, I want to be like this. Somewhere that situational and contextual understanding goes missing, which needs a lot of space in our thinking, or in our decision making process, I would say.
Absolutely. I think life is contextual in all aspects, right? So we are sometimes making decisions basis on, how we would want to be perceived, right? And that's a very flawed way of making decisions about yourself and, about your life as well. But if you would try to consider that, who I am as an authentic being, then the kind of decision that you will start making would truly start, reaping fruits and results for you in your life. Let's just change gears a bit more, Sakshi. Let's just talk about hustle culture, which we were talking about a moment ago. I think there's a very thin line difference between hustle culture and burnout culture. I think what most people confuses is, a hustle with a burnout, right? What is your take on it? Because you can be hustling for something that you really like. You can call it a hustle. But if you're putting your energy into something which probably doesn't reap any benefits or fruits for you, then then the difference is not much. It can slowly creep it into burnout, and you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
So I always struggle with that. Like, what is your take on it?
So I think first thing is let's define hustles. I'm going to give my point of view of, because I know if I have 5 people in the room and we all talk about hustle, we're coming from a different school of thought.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So for me, hustling is simple. Hustling is hard work plus being I think not being self-aware part is involved somewhere in hustling, because for me, hustling is personally a very aversive word. I can simply call it hardworking, but hustling to me includes a part of you that is not ready to stop, that is not ready to reflect, that is not ready to take care of your body and mind, your relationships, and other aspects of your life. That's my understanding. Because in my mind, that's the concept of hustling. Now, hardworking to me is, you're working hard, but somewhere you're also taking care of other things that are important to you. I mean, what is the use of all that work if your money is going to go to the doctor at the end, which happens a lot of times with all of us. I'm not saying even after best intentions, things could go wrong, but there's a better chance for you to be more honest to yourself if you really kind of stopped in between and you kind of looked at what are the other things that I want from my life. Because definitely work cannot be the only thing. You could be running away from things, and which is why you're completely into a hustle. So
Right.
like I said, hustle for me is hard work plus absence of reflection and pausing, and absence of balance in your life, I would say.
No, I think it's pretty much that. But for me, hustle is more about if you're hustling in the right direction, if you know what you're hustling for,
Yeah.
right, then it becomes play for you, right? And it's not really, I mean, you can call it a hustle. So a lot of people I know and I've met who really enjoy hustle. There's the other day I was talking to a colleague of mine. He was ex-colleague now. I was talking to him about, where do you get your kick from? Like working till 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. and getting,
Mm.
calls
Mm.
on meetings. So yeah, I get my kick from like that. And, we just started speaking about hustle culture. And he
Mm.
was like, it's a play for me. I mean, it really, really doesn't matter as long as I'm enjoying this and it
Mhm.
doesn't affect. And in the midst of that, I'm being able to take care of my health as well. Right. So
So
that's,
that's exactly what I meant.
hmm,
That is, then at least that's why I said it's very subjective. That you mentioned, if you're hustling, let's say if you're working in the direction of where you want to go,
yeah.
and you're taking care of yourself, and somewhere you're able to create that balance,
Hmm.
that in my eyes is not, then it's not hustling. That's why I say, maybe because we come from different perspective.
Right.
Because you're absolutely right. I mean, some people think I am hustling, whereas I feel like my life is, I'm like, no, I am not even probably doing 2%. So
Hmm.
see, it's very subjective. I think it's about the level where people are operating, and I don't want to demean anybody when I say the word level. But if you have not developed the internal resources, like agar aapko, you don't know how to manage your emotions, you have not developed the skill of convincing yourself for going to gym. Matlab, if you don't have all these things, then you might be thinking like somebody who's gymming every day is a freak, he's hustling.
For them, it could be a play, right? Like for them, it
It
comes very
is.
naturally.
So I still remember when I started to be a bit more regular in my content, there were few friends who came to me and said, why are you like running around all the time? Like, that's my work.
Yeah.
I'm not running around. Yes, there might
Hmm.
be some sort of a stress involved in work, but that's everywhere. Aren't people getting stressed? I still remember having a conversation about beer biceps. Somebody said, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, this guy's like, this guy's hustling." I was
Right.
like, maybe he's just enjoying what he does, and he has got a system around him, which is
Yeah.
he takes care of his health.
Hmm.
He's been a gym person.
Right.
He's leading a much more balanced life if we compare it to all other people who are working till 11 and 12. And I'll come back to the point where you mentioned, how do you manage to work till 12 a.m. and so. See, we look up to these things as like, wow, you're working like till
Yeah.
11 at night, 12.
Right.
That's the perception I was talking about. Why is working till late important?
Hmm.
Why is that seen differently? Why is the whole factor of I have like 10 cups of my coffee every day? That
Hmm.
is like that has become like a show off thingy.
Yeah.
Is caffeine really healthy? Did you consider that portion at all?
I
And
want
do
to
you
add.
even like coffee in the first place? A lot of people don't even like it, but
Yeah.
coffee is like cool, right?
I want to add on that. About uh, the way that we institutionalize certain things on the internet. You have no idea for the one who is institutionalizing that thing. I mean, of course, it's not wrong on their part, right? But they could be rather more responsible in also explaining things what they mean when they say certain things, right? Because the other person and social media is a free space. It's
Yeah.
everyone has a voice and everyone is listening to what somebody else has to say on the internet, right? And
Yeah.
everybody is really interested in everyone else's life on
Yeah.
social media, apparently. Maybe
Yeah.
not in real life, but in social media, they're really interested in what this person is doing on social media and what this person's life is all about, right?
Yeah.
So you should be as a content creator, and for somebody who's really putting your word out there, you should be really responsible for what you're putting out there. I feel there's a bunch of out there who are talking about productivity and again hustle culture. Some of them doing a really good job at explaining what they really mean by it, while the others are just imitating what already has been done in the West. And I mean, that's one thing, that's okay. But you should be really responsible as a content creator to put it out, because the other person who is at the receiving end, who's actually on the consuming end of that information, that piece of information, doesn't know where you're coming from.
So it's a two-way street, Himanshu. Then I always say you cannot skip your individual responsibility. If someone is making a video and saying jump in the well, I need to have my intelligence to say, why the heck am I first seeing the video? And then why am I even following the video in the first place? So yes, I absolutely believe, and the responsibility on creators have increased a lot. Whenever I put, I'm somebody who has got a still very limited following, and I got to be very careful when I put content so that I give them the context of it. But it's in the written form. It's even in the video form for that matter. Everything is so contextual that yes, it has put a responsibility on us, but I would also say that there's a whole lot of responsibility on people who are watching and listening to reflect and see what fits their context. Nobody can take 100% responsibility for your life. You got to see what's your context. You got to pause. You got to see what is happening with you. Like somebody could be in their first job and they're looking at the content by somebody saying, don't work for this salary. But internally, you're not prepared for a higher salary. Now you might be wasting your talent in thinking, no, I need that much of money. But internally, you need learning. That's the context I'm talking about. You can't be blind there to be like, now because I got to fit in. And which is why we talk about parents fitting in with each other and people pleasing. We have a different level altogether. We just do it differently, subtly, and in a more classier way.
But we're still doing it. We're still doing it.
We are social animals. So this is what I meant by context, that you got to see where you stand. And this is where from the start, you start building your authentic self, which is not easy to build. We are in the world where we're so lonely that we want to move with the herd. We want to be, at home, we don't even feel seen and heard. Of course, we want to feel that outside. We want that validation, which is why authentic self is a lot of work. If you know something is not good for you, like the example of career that I gave, that's going to give you a long-term harm. So whether you choose to move with where everybody is going, or you choose to see like, no, this is what I need to build my confidence, please be honest to yourself and move in that direction. People who are telling you something, they're coming with a different context. When I speak about LinkedIn today, the space where I am today is very different from where I was when I started my journey. If you listen to me today, you got to consider my journey as well. And you got to consider, where are you in your journey?
That's the most important thing to touch upon, actually, Sakshi, because most of the people who start admiring things about people, about certain aspects of their life, they're only looking at the superficial aspect of the things, which is where this person is at today. But they would rather not look at how much years of experience that person has accumulated over the period of time. How much failures and setbacks that person must have gone through in their journey of becoming to this successful as they are today. I think one of our mutual friends, Shivam, also speaks about that we compare our failures to other successes, right?
Again, apple to oranges concept. Comparing two wrong things. I think it goes against, I'm a very spiritual person. So it just goes against the whole fact of understanding and accepting the fact that, again, bringing back to where we started, we all are unique. You've got so much in your own story to bring out. You've got so much different in yourself that unless you accept some basics about as human life, you're just going to keep struggling for comparing things that are nowhere to be compared. But again, comparison is natural. Again, everything is natural. For me, everything will come as a human being. But you got to understand, how do I manage it better so that I navigate through it and not get stuck with that.
We were speaking about open loops the other day, Sakshi. Could you tell me more about that? What does open loops, and how does that actually work?
Okay. So I'll give the context first. So open loop is when we were in the restaurant talking about how, our attention is like taken over by so many things, and we've got so much to do, but we're not able to finish our things. We start and then we don't do anything about, and then what happens to all of that information? That was the context we were talking about.
Yeah.
So open loop is a concept that's given in the book called Getting Things Done. And it's a book by David Allen. I worked with him personally, and it's a bit of dry read. Okay. Sorry, David, but it's a dry read. It basically says that open loop is anything in your life which is not where it's supposed to be. Example, it could be as small as, I want you to look around in your room. Okay. Just look around. Is there anything that is not where it's supposed to be? Example. So I've got Coffee's food here. Okay. This was a backup plan just in case he does something in between podcasts. But I know this is not supposed to be here. My mind already knows that I need to do something about it. Okay. So when I know something needs to be done, that's an open loop. Another way to look at it is if you have made a commitment and not fulfill it, that is also open. Something that you said you would do, but you didn't do it. And there's no decision that has been made. So, wo tha na beech mein cheez latak gayi hai, as we say in Hindi. You've just kind of started and it's lost and you don't know what you're doing about it, because your brain has a tendency, your mind has a tendency to keep focusing on things that are unfinished. Zygonic Effect. Okay, so there was a Russian psychologist that has given this effect called Zygonic Effect, which is simply that your mind is going to focus a lot on something that you started but you didn't finish.
Okay.
Like a lot of times you're working, but you're remembering something that you need to do, and you're not even kind of listed down somewhere. Now your brain is trying really hard to keep it here so that you don't forget it.
House of Dragons का एक episode start कर लिया है, but अभी 5 और हैं, so that's an open loop.
Oh, absolutely. And not every open loop has to be closed, but somewhere a decision has to be made. So let's say I started a book and I left it somewhere.
Right.
Now, of course, if I don't like the book, I'm not going to read it. But if you have told yourself, I don't like it, I'm not going to read it, that's a decision being made. That's no more an open loop. Open loop is something that something needs to be changed, but you have not done it. Or something needs to be done, but you have not done it.
Got it.
And which is why I launched the workshop release, which is on brain dumping, because this is game changer in terms of productivity. So I help through that. I help people to close the open loops, because once they come in the workshop and they brain dump, some people have gone with like 300 things on their page. For goodness sake, that shows how many things have you started. And it could also be not just about like tasks, but it could be about conversations that you are supposed to be having. It could be about your feelings and thoughts, but there is something that needs to be done about it. So it's just that workshop, just for an example, helps you to start closing those loops. Right. Because unless you start making decisions and start moving forward, sometimes you get in a very free stage. I know I got to do it, but I'm so frozen, but I'm just not moving.
Yeah. I think I have an idea about now, what you meant by open loops. So the way that I'm looking at, closing these open loops is to, document it somewhere, right? So
absolutely.
For example, if I have started a conversation with somebody and I had wanted to discuss certain project with them, and I discussed it, let's say in the case of, starting that loop, but not closing it. So starting that loop could be discussing that project verbally over the call with them. And, 2 weeks has passed and now that loop is still open in my mind. In the other case, while I had probably, some sort of physical notebook with me, I could have written it down, let's say, this is the project details. This is our POA, point of action. This is our next steps. Yeah. This is the timeline that we are looking at, and this is how we would want to do certain things. So what and how.
Yeah.
these are the things that we would want to do. So we've written it down.
Mm-hmm.
Should we consider that as a closed loop? Because I have started something, but I have also documented it. So now should I consider that as a closed loop, or is it still open in my mind?
It's still open because you close the loop when you, first step is when you answer yourself, what does done look like? Okay. So let me give you an example here. I might be reading a book, and so I started reading a book that becomes an open loop. Now I ask myself, okay, when will this task of reading the book be done for me? So for you, it could be, I just want to read, chill, I'm done. It could be when I read, I make my notes, and then it's done for me. You see the difference between the two? How does done look like is different for different people.
Yeah.
When you eventually tick something off, I would say, just to keep it very simple, okay? When something is ticked off, then your loop is closed. Otherwise, your loop is still open. I start to read a book, let's say, again, I'm taking because it's like a simple example to take. So I started reading it. I've read the book, but somewhere in my mind, the objective that I had of reading that book was to create something from it. If I have not done that, that loop is still open. Loop is closed as per what does done look like to you.
Yeah.
When is the point when thing will be off my list? If you don't know that clarity is required for you to even know that where to close the loop. If you don't have clarity, then the loop is going to be open.
Yeah. For me, at that moment of time, a done could also look like, having it documented. Because if I wouldn't have documented it somewhere, I probably would have forgotten. I don't like keeping things on my brain all the time. So I like to keep it empty and put it and document it somewhere, whether that be on a calendar, whether that be on a physical notebook, or whether if I have to-do, so I'll have to put it on my calendar or my Google Keeps somewhere on the internet, so that I can always refer back to, or somewhere on my physical notebooks or my journal. So
and clearly shows your reflection, Himanshu, because now I'm not somebody who's going to keep things on my brain.
Yeah.
You figured out what works for you somewhere. And I'm just looking at the process you have gone to reach to a level of knowing what systems and tools will work out for you. That's the kind of reflection we were talking about initially. Unless you sit and you see how things are working for you, then this podcast could also be great information consumption place. But unless you're going to sit and think about what we said, it's just merely some words that are just crossing your head. That's it.
Before we end this, Sakshi, I would like to ask you what are you reading these days? And is there any knowledgeable thing that you would like to share with the listeners and viewers of this podcast?
Book, I would say I've gone a little slow on reading, but I'm reading on and off this book called Conversations with God. In terms of what I've read recently, that's what you asked, right? What have I read recently that's something that I would like to share?
Yeah. Any new concept or subject? Because I know you keep coming across these new, I won't say fancy, but new knowledgeable ideas. So I just want to make sure everyone who is viewing this podcast and listening to this should also have some key takeaways. From this podcast.
Honestly, not that I can think of anything new. I think I'm just going reverse in my ways of working.
Brain dump is something I think I remember you mentioning last time, sir.
Well, yeah. So as I said, brain dump is connected to open loop concepts. So this is something which helps you to close those loops that I said. And I do a workshop called Release every single month, and I'm expanding that into a group coaching format as well soon. So that's something, of course, you guys can go and check out on my social media as well. That's something that just, again, it's back to basics, because I've realized complication is not for me. I'm a very back to basic person. So it's just about putting everything on a piece of paper or digital medium. But how you do it and what you do it, of course, I take it up in the workshop. But brain dump is as simple as just literally taking out everything that is on your mind outside, that you can see what beautiful mess you've created in your mind.
Right.
And then we start kind of untangling all the threads, and we start to, from the start where we started the podcast of 80/20. So then I help you to go through those moments of prioritizing,
Right.
creating more clarity, having the clarity of the month in front of you, because many of us know where we want to go. We have clarity. We are just so distracted in the world where we start questioning ourselves for no reason, literally for no reason. There's no reason for us to question ourselves, but just because we see so much, we consume so much, we start to question ourselves. Whereas a lot of my clients question themselves on clarity.
Okay.
Whereas it's not about clarity. They know what they want from their life. It's just that organizing their life is a challenge at this point when there's too much of information. There's one thing that I would leave with that is working out very well for me, very well for my clients. And I'm very grateful that that system is working out very well. Like I said, for me and the clients both. It's called less is more. As the word says, 3 words, less is more.
Is it similar to saying minimalism or a minimalistic lifestyle? Or is it
yeah, you can say it's going to that level, but the context that I was coming from is more from using techniques. It could be obviously used to, you can take it to having less things in your life. There's less complications. Like I'm literally working towards finalizing one shirt that I want to wear for every workshop and keynote that I want to do. It's something that I learned from Marshall Goldsmith. And it just make my life easy, right? Every time I do so much of work in choosing clothes, whereas somebody who's that caliber, if you know Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, he has got just one green color shirt, and I worked with him personally, and he has done that for years. The number of years I work with him, I've always seen him like that. It's such a simple life. So at the end, I think it's the simplicity, the minimalistic, and less is more in terms of the books that you read. Sometimes you need less information and you can do so much with that, and you can apply the same information in different areas as well. You might not need like 50 principles. You might need just 2 principles, and then you can create and work so much on that. You might need one time management technique to try that out and make it work for yourself. Now I've got to a point where I say it's not going to work on its own. How do you make it work is also one of the aspects. So whether it's about creating videos, I'm still following less is more. I create videos. I've started creating more of it, but still it's like, okay, maybe it's once a week. So apply less is more, give more through less videos, give more through less of your work. But I think focus on the quality and focus on, again, contextual reflection is very important. So less is more is something that I want to leave the audience with, that have less friends, as we say. Your less friends could be like the greatest support. 50 people can't be giving you that support, but if you have 2 right people in your life, I think that's all that you need. So the same principle can be used at different cases and different aspects of life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. This was great. And thank you so much for doing this. It has been absolute pleasure speaking with you and getting so much insights on different and wonderful subjects from you. I think I'm taking a lot from this podcast, and would love to do this again.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the wonderful conclusion that energy is limited. So we better start being aware of where are we spending and why are we spending and where do we want to spend going forward. So great conclusion, beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sakshi.